What is up, you guys? Welcome to another incredible episode of the Explain It podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Steven Hunt.
And I'm Ingryd Hernandez.
And thank you so much for joining us. If you are on Instagram, if you are on any other platform other than YouTube or Facebook, please go ahead and join us on YouTube. Put some comments in. We want to take your questions, all the good stuff. But today we have an incredible guest, one of our close friends, one of your business partners, actually.
Yeah.
We both had the opportunity to be on his podcast.
One of my favorites, but don't let anybody know.
It is one of my favorite podcasts, actually, of all time.
No. Oh, yes. It's literally where I fell in love with you and Angel. I was like, oh my God. Like if you guys haven't watched the podcast with this next guest that we have and Steven and Angel, you're missing out. But I also love, it's almost like marriage advice for the ambitious. Because when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that's how marriage works. And that's how like you get ready to be, like you plan for success.
We do.
My church is going through a marriage series right now, which I'm freaking loving. And I had to watch church from home because I'm like dedicating myself to
I've done that a few times.
Yeah. And
CCV makes it really easy.
They sure do.
Yeah.
And okay, our pastor, Ashley, me and Mark were rolling. Like it was freaking hilarious. It was really real because like he was kind of joking on like just how look, married people have sex, okay?
Yeah.
And so
sometimes.
So it was really funny about like how like is like how you're supposed to expect it to interact. But anyway, so that's a piece of it. But the other piece is like, are you ambitious? Are you ready to go? And the podcast with Marlon Johnson. Marlon Johnson was so bomb. Should we bring him up?
Let's bring on Marlon Johnson. What is up?
Hey, what's up, Steven?
Friend.
What's up, Steven? What's up, Ingryd? Good to see y'all.
Hey.
Good to see you. Thank you for joining us today, Marlon.
Dude, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm loving the studio, by the way. Like every time I see you guys on this live, I'm just like, man, that studio is so fresh.
Thank you so much.
We wanted you here, by the way.
Yeah, the space was open, but I get it. Yeah,
prior commitment.
Yes, you're a full 10 minutes away from us. I understand. It's a little out of the way.
Dude,
it feels like a full circle moment for me too.
Yeah.
And Wednesday, I would love to be in the studio. Wednesdays are just like my heavy day, and I was just like, oh, if only you guys did the podcast on like a Thursday or a Friday.
Oh yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I have different kinds of heavy days, but that's neither here nor there.
Interpret that how you guys want.
So,
well, Marlon, you have had so much success. You're such an awesome person. Your mind is marvelous. I love the way you think. I love the way you talk. I love so many things about what you do, but why don't you give our guests a little bit of a background of who Marlon Johnson is? Is he the real estate investor? Is he the mindset guy? What is he? Who is he? What does he do?
Yeah, you know what? For your audience, I would say the way people could look at me is I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm lucky enough to be now a mindset coach for other entrepreneurs. I got my start in entrepreneurship that I will call my real start back in October of 2019. This is to take you guys back there for a brief moment. October 2019, I'm 26 years old. I'm living at home with my mom and my sister in the house that I grew up in. And I'm working 3 jobs, barely making ends meet. I live in New York, by the way. I'm making about $25,000 a year. Not a whole lot of money. I really don't have any guidance or clear direction on how to improve my financial status, how to improve my status as a man. And I was just feeling like a total loser. I was the last guy left in my neighborhood. All my friends had moved out. And if someone's living at home where they grew up, by the way, I'm not saying that that makes you a loser. But for me personally, I had always talked a big game growing up that when I'm 18 years old, I'm going to get out of this house. I'm going to get out of New York. I'm going to travel around the world. I'm going to go see it all, do it all. And then there I was stuck in the same place. And it didn't feel good, honestly. It felt pretty terrible. And I realized I had nobody to blame except myself. And so I started getting into personal development. I started seeking out mentors. I was lucky and fortunate enough to come across one of my first mentors back then, and he introduced me to real estate investing. And I wish I could say that when I bought into that mentorship, it was an instant, catapult to the top. It wasn't. It was a grind, like we all know business is. It took me several months, 8 months exactly, to get my first deal. But
Wow.
since then, I've been able to wholesale properties nationwide. I started doing fix and flips up in the Midwest, up in Milwaukee, where we flipped 15 properties. I have a rental portfolio of 25 doors. And now I get the opportunity to work with other entrepreneurs, guys and gals who are stuck at like a low six-figure mark, who are looking to break into higher six-figure and seven-figure earnings. And I get to work with them on their limiting beliefs and mindset. So I'm living the life of my dreams, quite frankly.
That is so incredible. Well, and I just to even bring it back to the dark times, if you will, right? When you're like, all
Yeah.
my friends left this, I'm living at home. I had all these aspirations for myself. What a lot of people don't realize too, and we can talk about this from a mindset perspective, is what you've done to yourself in those situations, and it's very hard for people to get out of those situations, is you have let yourself down. And that is the fastest way to lose confidence, I personally feel, is when you make a commitment to yourself and say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go do these things. And all of a sudden you look around and you go, I'm the only one that didn't do it. I'm actually the only person that didn't do that. So to get yourself out of that place is that people shouldn't just look at like, oh, he just signed up for this. He got a mentor and he was good. No, that takes a lot of self-awareness, self-development. I mean, months and months. So you getting that first real estate deal, I'm sure a lot of that also had to do with a lot of limiting beliefs and mindsets that you're now educating people on.
Big time. So what I realized when I bought into the mentorship program, and this happens with everybody, when people buy the solution to their problem, there's this instant feeling of relief that you've solved the problem. It's an interesting thing that you feel that when you purchase the solution, the problem is solved. You've only purchased the opportunity to solve the problem. So when I got into that mentorship program, there was that brief moment of like, all right, cool, I'm on the path. I'm on the right track. My life is better. But then reality hit me the next day when I still had the work to do. And so those early 8 months of really figuring it out was a lot of me chasing everything that moved, every little rabbit that ran, I was out there chasing. And it took me a long time to realize I needed to narrow in, lock in, and pick a lane and stay in that lane until. That's when I started getting results, is when I really found and discovered this word focus. And after I kind of stumbled upon focus, I thought I was a genius, Steven. I was like, man, like I figured out the solution to everything. Like if you learn how to focus, it's the skill that unlocks all skills. And what I came to realize when I started looking at other people who were more successful than me is they had already figured this out. I was the one who was late to the party. But I now have the privilege of sharing this secret, sharing this lesson with those who don't know about it yet. Like I feel like I'm initiating people into a world of enlightenment when I teach them about focus. And funny enough, about a week and a half ago, I was out for a walk and I was just reflecting and I was thinking about the word focus. And people, by the way, if you guys don't know the word focus, FOCUS, it's an acronym for follow one course until successful. And I started thinking,
snap.
All right. Okay.
that was funny. The two of you, that you guys are awesome. And so what's interesting is I kept meditating on that word because truthfully, no other skill or characteristic helped propel me more than the ability to focus, to lock in to just one thing. And so I started playing with that word and meditating on that word. And I came up with a focus framework that I would love to teach to the audience today, because this word focus is my word for 2025. It's the only word that matters in 2025.
It's
my word too.
Yeah.
I want it to be
Well,
everybody's
I
word.
think it's so I'm so happy we're doing this podcast. This is great. Yeah, it's literally all of our words here. I think last year was a little bit of a cluster for maybe all of us then, if that's going to be the case. Whether it's I had multiple businesses going at the same time, trying to figure out how I'm going to balance those things. We got a new baby on the way. We just became parents. I'm like, I'm a little all over, more things than I've ever had going on in my life, and trying to figure out focus and how to stay on track with one thing. It's easy to be taken away from that. It's very easy to be taken away from that, especially as you start to gain more success. I've noticed as you start to get the ball rolling more and more, because more and more opportunities come to you. You start to attract all of those opportunities, which can pull the focus away from you. So I'm so excited, especially because it's the beginning of the year, that you get to break this down for all of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, like for the audience listening right now, I want you guys to ask yourself this question. Do you have all the resources, right? Like, have you bought into the mentorship programs? Have you paid for the program, the courses, the books, the workshops? You've gone out to the events, you're in the masterminds, and you've been doing this for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and you're still not producing the results. If you're in that boat, you really need to listen to this podcast today. This might be the most valuable episode you ever listen to for 2025. If you really take what I'm about to say, take it to heart, and you begin to run with it. Your ability to focus is your most valuable skill. And so I'm going to see if I can share my whiteboard here. I got the iPad with me. Let's see if I'm able to share it. I think you guys have to bring my iPad up on the screen.
Let's see.
Ingrid might be the one in control of that.
Boom.
Beautiful. So I'm a
great.
whiteboard guy. I love doing whiteboard sessions, and this is no different today. So I'm going to make the pen bigger. So let's
Marlon,
talk about focus. Yep.
You're going to have to also coach us right after this what you did to make this work.
We
We just got an iPad. We haven't used it yet. And I'm like, oh my God, it's working.
Yeah.
Somebody's using it. So you have to let
problem.
us know how to do that.
Minutes
I'm
before we got on
literally
this, literally trying to
Yeah.
figure out how are we going to do this. We want to use the whiteboard, and then you
Mhm.
just flex on us.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is what I do. And so we're going to talk about focus. And again, Ingrid has it right there at the bottom of the screen. Focus stands for follow one course until successful. And I'm going to teach you a framework. And before I even teach you this framework, I'm going to actually, guys, I'm sorry, I'm going to have you share one more thing. I'm going to share on my screen something that is going to demonstrate the value of what I'm about to teach. And so last year, I traveled across the country twice. The first time when we ran from Santa Monica Pier to Central Park, New York, we raised over $111,000 to fight human trafficking. An amazing experience. And when I was done, I left the RV that we were using to house us in Pennsylvania. And then Caroline, myself, and Linda, we went and picked that RV up, and we did a road trip from East Coast to West Coast for 2 months. And on this road trip, I was able to stop and hang out with a lot of community members, go and meet some investors, spend time with some of our private money lenders, and do all this fun, amazing stuff. And one of the best parts about my trip is I got to sit down in Colorado with one of my favorite people, Maj. And Maj is not only an amazing investor, he's an amazing guy. He's a new father, and he's been a client of mine for the last year. And so I work with Maj as a coach. And here's the funny thing, Ingrid. I've been telling Maj for the last couple of months, Maj, you need to focus. You've got a cleaning business. You've got a real estate business. You're trying to get into lending. He's trying to do so many things. And I kept telling him over and over, and Maj, if you're watching this, I love you, bro. I kept telling him, you need to focus. You need to actually eliminate some of these businesses. You need to eliminate some of these distractions. That focus is the active removal of distractions. It's the active removal of things that are not the one thing. And so I had given him this advice over Zoom, over phone calls. He's booked one-on-ones with me, but he never really took the advice in. Like he took it in intellectually, but he wasn't acting on it. And so I was in Colorado. I made it a point. I said, Maj, tomorrow morning, I want to work out with you, and then I want to get breakfast. And so we work out, we're having a great time. And then at breakfast, I grilled him. And I don't know if it's maybe because we were sitting in person, table, eye to eye, across from one another, that he finally took what I had to say and like really took it to heart. And he could see it in my eyes. He could feel it from my energy. I don't know what was different about that day, but it finally clicked where I said, Maj, you need to get rid of some of these businesses. All of these things you're doing have the potential to make you a lot of money, but not if you're doing all of them at the same time. And so when we left that breakfast, within 30 days, Maj shared this inside of my community. He shared this message with me, and I'm going to read it for you guys. It said, finally broke through a record month. I admittedly worked 10 to 15 hours per week in the field. However, we've gained 3 reoccurring monthly clients, and we're starting to target commercial clients that will be weekly reoccurring cleans. My goal is to be out of the field completely by this December and average at least 20,000, which is 4,000 above our current average of 15,000 per month. It's amazing what happens when cutting out the distractions. And then he shared his Stripe that shows he actually did $30,000 that month.
Wow.
Nice.
And so I share this not to impress you guys, but to impress upon you what happens when you start to cut distractions away and you focus on one thing. There's one more thing I want to show. I'm going to share my screen once more, if you don't mind bringing this up. This is a screenshot from a person that we both know, that all 3 of us know and love. This is Caroline. In fact, I have Caroline 250K wire written at the top. And so Caroline, over the last year, we sat down, we talked, and she got focused, hyper focused on literally doing just one thing. And when I say hyper focus, remember, I said focus is the active removal of everything that's not the one thing. Caroline let go of amazing things. In fact, Caroline used to be on this podcast with you, Ingrid, and she even had to say no to that in order that she can focus on just one thing, which has been her pre-foreclosure wholesale business. She only works on one strategy. She only does one exit with the properties. She doesn't keep them. She doesn't do anything. She just wholesales these properties. She gets rid of them, and she only targets pre-foreclosures. And as a result, this is one of the 11 deals that she has. 1 out of 11, over $700,000 in pipeline profit right now. And that wire for $243,000, let me give full transparency. She had to pay her private money lenders back on this, $100,000. So they only made $143,000.
Oh, they only made $143,000.
Give it up. Give it up. It's like, that's so awesome.
I thought it'd be more valuable to show what other people are doing, because I could sit and show my own track record. I could show my portfolio. I could show what I've done. But I think it's more important for people to realize that it's plausible for them as well if they're going to listen to what I'm about to share and take it to heart. So without further ado, let's actually jump back to the whiteboard now.
Let's do it.
Right out.
All right. So we got the whiteboard here and we got focus. So I mentioned follow one course until successful, but I'm going to give a framework for focus. And we're going to start off with the F. And the F stands for follow one objective. All right. When I say follow one objective, you heard me hinting at this before. Pick one goal. Even in 2025, recently, the last quarter, I've been asking people, not what are your goals for 2025? I asked people, what is your goal? What is the one thing you want to accomplish? And I've been giving people a question to help them narrow down the answer. And I asked people, I said, what's the one thing that if you accomplish, it would make all of your other goals easier or unnecessary? I'm going to repeat that question one more time so the audience can write it down. What is the one thing that if you accomplish, it would make all of your other goals easier or unnecessary? I want you to focus on a single objective that would eliminate the need to do all the other things in your life, and then focus all of your attention on that, because there's an analogy that I've been teaching a lot, and I learned this from Alex Hermosi. He talked about this marble analogy. And this has been one of the most valuable analogies I've learned, and I've been utilizing it over and over and over. And he speaks about your attention, and he refers to your attention as marbles. And he says, let's say, for example, you have 10 marbles, and these 10 marbles represent your mental bandwidth, the amount of attention you can put on anything. And he says, when you go out and you're building business, our audience, we've got a lot of real estate investors, and let's say you're starting a wholesale company. And you determine that your wholesale company is going to cost you 3 marbles of attention. Awesome. Well, you're going along, you're doing that, but then, ooh, look at this. I can start a short-term rental company. And that's only going to cost me 2 marbles of attention. Cool, let's get it going. But I stayed online, I was listening to my favorite influencers, and they started talking about just how easy it is to gator lend. And so gator lending, that's only going to cost me 2 marbles of attention. You know what? Let's get into it. Plus, oh my gosh, my favorite people are coming to town and they're running an RV workshop for the weekend. I'm going to go and learn about RV buying because I want to buy an RV park one day. And that only cost me 3 marbles of attention. I mean, if you look at it, I'm all good, right? 3 plus 3 plus 2 plus 2, that's 10. We're equally balanced. Oh, but I do have this thing called a family. And, you know, I mean, they're not high maintenance. They only cost 2 marbles. And I have been trying to keep my hobbies alive because, quite frankly, you don't like me without my hobbies. I need to be sane. I got to go and work out. I've got to go ride my bike. I got to go to Pilates. Like, you don't want to meet me without my hobbies. But we're running into an issue, right? I'm counting 15 and I only have 10 marbles to spend. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. Check this out. Ingrid, I got this figured out. I'm a genius. I am going to temporarily take some of my marbles from the short-term rental, and I'm going to put that over here on my family. And then I'm going to take some of my marbles from my hobbies. I'm going to bring that over here to wholesale. And we're good, right? The marbles are evenly spent. Nobody sneeze, nobody fart, nobody move. But what happens? We've all been in business. We know what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Shit happens.
In your business, a fire occurs, right? I call these dumpster fires. And so you get this dumpster fire that happens in your wholesale business, and it's going to cost you 3 marbles of attention. It's like, well, where do I get the 3 marbles of attention? I know what I'll do. Let's go ahead and borrow those marbles from the RV park. And notice the language I'm using. I'm saying borrow, because this person is not saying I'm shutting off the RV park. No. We're still doing. I didn't shut off the short-term rent. I put it on pause. And so because you put it on pause, guess what happens? An opportunity comes in and it requires your attention over here. So now you're trying to bring your attention back to the short-term rental. And okay, well, where else can I grab some marbles from? You know what? Let me pull a marble from the family. They won't miss that marble. The kids are old enough. We're good. And you start playing this game of moving the marbles, and you're trying to move the marbles fast enough, and you're always feeling worked up. You're always feeling out of energy. You feel like you never have enough mental bandwidth to solve any of the problems. You're overwhelmed constantly, and nothing is growing in a meaningful way. This is what most people are doing. Here's what I'm going to suggest you do instead. Let's take the intelligent approach. Let's get our 10 marbles. And yes, I just called that last approach stupid. So if you're doing that, you're doing something stupid. We've got our wholesale business in this case. We got 3 marbles. We got our family. We got 2 marbles. We got our hobbies. We got 3 marbles. And then we stop. That is it. But Marlon, that's only 8 marbles being used. You got 2 more marbles. I know. Because inevitably, this fire is going to appear somewhere in your life. And those other marbles are going to be the necessary bandwidth, the necessary mental capacity to put those fires out. See, when you no longer have attention, you no longer have the physical horsepower to handle the problems in your life. And so small problems start to become big problems. Not because they're actually big problems. They're only big because you don't actually have the ability to handle it, right? It's kind of like things aren't expensive. You just don't make enough money to afford it. Those problems aren't big problems. You just don't have enough attention to deal with it. And what happens is when you start to have more of your mental capacity back and you have more attention, you're able to handle those problems and they don't seem like a big deal anymore. And then what you start to do is you start to categorize little problems or little opportunities as big problems because you see how little opportunities have the ability to pull your attention away. So little problems become big and big problems become small. Point number 2 I want to make on this.
By the way,
Point number 2.
Steven and I are just focused here listening in case.
Yeah, we are still here, guys.
Woo-woo.
So point number 2 that I want to make with this F on following one objective is rule 101 and 102. So this is a rule I actually borrowed from house flipping. And I learned this from 2 of my mentors, Gene and Ron, who are out of Florida, who flip hundreds of houses a year. And rule 101 and rule 102. I'm just curious, Steven, Ingryd, have you guys ever heard of rule 101 and 102? And this is totally like out of left field. So I'll be surprised if you know what rule 101 and 102 are.
It's always
No.
more expensive and overtime.
Boom. Yo, Ingryd is on the money. So
For real?
rule
Did
102
you got
is
it?
spot on the money. 100%.
shit.
See, this is how I know
Oh.
Ingryd flips
That
houses.
was not planned.
That's why I was like, because you guys are flipping houses, you know it. So if you guys didn't hear what Ingryd said, rule 101 is it will always cost more. Like that's just the reality. It's your goal, the thing you want to build, the business you want to build, the amount of money you want to make, the amount of customers you want to get, the amount of houses you want to own. It's always going to cost more. And I'm not just talking about in dollars. I'm talking about in effort, in energy, in the amount of phone calls you need to make, in the amount of offers you need to send, in the amount of deals you need to look at, in the amount of properties you need to underwrite, in the amount of permits you need to get. Like, everything is always going to cost more. Just anticipate this. It's rule 101. It will always cost more. And rule 102, Ingryd said it. It will always take more time. It's always going to take longer than you expect. You know, an interesting thing, I can tell when someone's new based on, it's funny, right? Like, when we all get into business, and maybe it's just a guy thing. I don't know. I feel like every guy, I haven't talked to the girls yet to figure this one out. But the guys, when we get into business, our first year
Marlon,
in business.
if you're not talking to the girls, now I know what you need to do more so we can get that figured out for you.
We got some time there, Ingryd. Hey, it's always going to take more time. Rule 102.
It's always going to cost more.
And it's always going to cost more. And so the funny thing here is, if the guys are typically under the age of 26, I know that their first goal when they start business and they're brand new is they want to make $1 million. Every guy under the age of 26, when they get into business, within the first 12 months, they are absolutely convinced they are going to make $1 million with no business experience, no sales experience, no marketing experience. They're going to go make $1 million. If they're over the age of 26, they're a little bit wiser, and they're thinking in terms of, hey, I just want to pay my bills and live a comfortable life. Their goal is, I want to make $10,000 a month. Right. And so it's just an interesting thing. And so I'm reminding you all that right now, that goal of $1 million or $10,000 a month, it's going to cost you more than you think in terms of effort, energy, and time. And it's going to cost you longer than you think. Right. It might not happen in 12 months, and that's okay. Stay locked into your one goal. So the final thing I want to make on this point, and this is just the F. This is just F on focus. The final thing I want to make, the final point I want to make here is what you need to do is stop jumping ship. You start and stop way too much. If you think about this, for the audience that's watching, and be honest with yourself, if you had stayed committed to the goal, to the business, to the opportunity when you first started it 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, where would you be today? I guarantee you there are people who started at the exact same time as you, and the only difference is that person, they went like this, they stayed, and then when it started to get hard, you bailed and you started something new. That person rode down and then started to catch the current back up again. Rode down and started to catch the current back up again. You instead rode it up. It started to go down. You bailed. You rode the next thing up. You bailed. You rode the next thing up. You bailed, because there's this feeling of progress that happens when you're brand new. Everything you're learning is exciting. You're in the honeymoon phase of business. You're in the honeymoon phase of the opportunity. Everything feels good. And you like that feeling of progress. Well, here's the thing. Although you're progressing, and that's true, your progression never compounds because they're always in separate vehicles. And so at the end of the 12 months, at the end of 2 years and 3 years, those things you all did were independent. None of them were connected. It never actually built up into anything. If you had simply stayed on the same ship and rode the down so you can ride the up again, you would be so much further along. So again, I'm going to remind you to follow one objective, stick with one thing. So that's the F of focus. If we stop there, I think this is enough value for you to succeed in 2025. But we've got 4 more letters in the word focus. So I'm going to bring
Marlon,
this over.
Do you think you have a moment to address the question from K Vargas where, and guys, if you're finding value in here and you're loving this episode, make sure you're clicking the like, subscribing, all the good things. But How do you stay focused with a 9 to 5, 3 months into the mentorship of Sub 2, and feeling the pressure to be profitable with a newly formed business? What would you say to someone like
Ooh,
that?
I absolutely love that. So, K Vargas, first off, how do you stay focused with a 9 to 5? The reality is you have a 9 to 5. That's your job. That's what's putting money on the table today. That's the current horse that's taking you from point A to point B. Honor that 9 to 5 and be there. I would be curious what your 9 to 5 is. If you have a good 9 to 5 and it's a good opportunity vehicle, stop looking at it as this thing I need to run away from and start to look at it as your partner. Your 9 to 5 is effectively your funding partner. Ingryd's a prime example of this. Ingryd had her 9 to 5 up until just a few months ago, and that 9 to 5 allowed her to go out and to do property and to do real estate at a pretty high level. And she was able to skip some of the earlier stages that other people have to go through because they don't have another option. So I would want to know what your 9 to 5 is to have a better understanding of what that is. Then the 3 months into Sub 2 and feeling the pressure to be profitable. Well, my curiosity wants to know who told you were going to be profitable in 3 months of starting a brand new business.
Yeah.
Just like if you have never had business experience and you are just getting started, where did you get the idea that within 3 months you were going to be profitable effectively you're learning a new language, you're learning a whole new way of operating and being. The reality is, if you're brand new to business and you are working a 9 to 5, so you're not working full time on your brand new business either, you need to extend the expectation of how long it's going to take, because there are skill sets that you need to acquire and foundations that need to be built. And I find that so often people get themselves into trouble because they're rushing.
Yes.
I believe you need to live with a sense of urgency, but never, ever be in a rush.
I'm so
Rushing
happy you
causes you
said
to
that,
make
Marlon.
mistakes.
Yeah, you don't want to make bad decisions because you put yourself in a rushed mode. But that was I've always talked about the fact that I had a 9 to 5 made me somebody who had the privilege of taking my time. I've always put it to that, because nobody's trying to rush me. My bills are getting paid. My family is fed. And that is what matters the most. So I took 9 months, K Vargas, before I even locked up my first deal. I took 6 months to just watch the modules, watch the Zooms, feel like I am confident enough in the skills and knowledge. I practice my sales. I practice the deal structuring. Every day I would take 5 fake houses and I would underwrite them and say, okay, if I was going to buy this house and it was like a gut job to flip or whatever, how would I wholesale this? And I would literally practice without actually having a deal in front of me, so that when I had a deal, it was just a repetition that I had already completed. But I took 6 months to do that without any expectations of making money. And then what helped me actually lock up a deal, literally on day 7 of being consistent, I worked my 9 to 5. Technically, it was like 8 or 7 to 4:30. And at 4:30 to 7, every day, Monday through Thursday, I kept my Fridays through Sunday open with my family. No. Monday through Friday. On the 7th day I locked this up on a Thursday. That's how I remembered in my brain. I literally just locked myself up, and I was like, okay, I'm doing this for my family. I'm going to focus. I'm going to be consistent. That mattered so much that I locked up my deal after I had already that wasn't just like, oh yeah, Ingryd does 7 days in and boom, you got it locked up. No, that was 9 months in. That was 9 months in of building up my reps, my skills that I knew were going to produce for me in the long run. It was a marathon, not a sprint. So
yeah, I mean, and let's go all the way back to the beginning when Marlon talked about him joining the mentorship, that really put him on the trajectory to success. Months, he said. It took him months to be able to implement all the things that he was learning. I came from a sales background, and it still took me 8 months after joining Sub 2 to get my first deal. If I look at the true time frame of that, it took me 8 months to get that first deal. And then I started to get the momentum, and then I started to see more opportunities, but it still wasn't this instantaneous thing. After that, I figured out finally what worked after doing the repetitions. You keep going and going and going, and eventually it compounds on itself, like we just talked about as well.
So, you know what? It's funny. And I think it's perfect. This is going to be especially for Kate Vargas right now, because the reason you're feeling that pressure is because of something called FOMO. And I'm going to talk about that here in 2 seconds. So I'm going to keep going because I think the O portion is really going to help Kay.
Yeah.
And so the O, check this out. This is for ownership. So, Kay, when I say ownership, I'm talking about ownership of your decision. And let's break down the word decision. So a lot of people don't even... Well, I did. By the way, everyone, I'm a terrible speller. I admit that. I tell people that. And the cool thing is, you can be a terrible speller and still make money in real estate.
Hey!
So, check this out, though. The word decision is 2 words. You got day and you got decision. And so when we break down day, this is the sub for off or away. Right? And then decision, this actually comes from the Latin word cadare, which means to cut. And so the word decision actually means to cut off, to cut away. Cut away what? All other options. To cut away failure. To cut away, if you locked in and you said, look, I've got my 9 to 5 and I invested into this real estate mentorship. I'm inside of sub 2. I'm going to go in wholesale and I'm going to start to produce more money there. You have effectively cut off every other option where that's not a reality. And that means you're also not working on any other strategy. And be honest with yourself. Are you getting distracted watching every Zoom about every strategy, and you're learning about lease options, and you're learning about wraps, and you're learning about gator lending, and you're learning about TC, and you're learning about RV parks, and you're learning about multifamily, and you're learning about buying title companies, and you're learning about how to structure wills, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? And okay, maybe that's not you, but that's somebody on here. And so I just want to make that point. So I'm talking through UK to the entire audience. And when you start to make these decisions and you start to honor them, you start to take ownership of those decisions, it means you are going to stand up for the choice that you made. And so a lot of times people never lock into their decisions. They never actually want to make the decision because they're afraid of, well, what if I make the wrong decision? What if I make the wrong choice? Well, I had a mentor, a high performance coach, actually, and she told me something. She gave me really good advice one day. It was about 2.5 years ago. She said, Marlon, make a decision and make it right. She didn't say make the right decision. She told me to make a decision and then make it right. You have no way of always predicting the future. You just do not know. However, you have to be all in. And from being all in, you will figure out much sooner whether or not you've made the right choice or whether or not you need to course correct. But being halfway in, think about it like this. If you're halfway into a relationship, how are you ever going to know if that person's the one? It's never going to work. You need to be all in. You need to take ownership of your decision. And a reason I see people not taking ownership of their decision is this word.
FOMO.
It's FOMO. You're fear of missing out. You're afraid that, well, if I make this decision, then I'm going to miss out on that, and everyone's doing that, or I made this decision, but now I see what Steven's doing, and I want to go do what Steven's doing. Now I see what Ingryd's doing. I want to go do what Ingryd's doing. I see what Caroline's doing. I want to go do what Caroline's doing. I see what Pace is doing. I see what Alexis is doing. I see what Sam's doing, and now I want to go do what they are doing. Do you know the most successful people I know have zero freaking clue what everybody else is doing? They have no clue what's going on in other people's worlds. They're aware of what's happening in their world, and then maybe 4 to 5 of their best friends, and that is it. They have no clue what's happening with everybody else. Inside of sub 2, I know people that I mention names, and they're like, who? Who's that person? Who's the people when they say who to me? Those are also the people making the most money. Because they are so focused on what they are doing. They're only inviting relationships in that pertain to the decision they made and the outcome they want to achieve. And so throughout 2025, I've actually created a standard in my life for relationships that if you want to come into my life and you want to be a friend of mine, you cannot suffer from FOMO. If you suffer from FOMO, I have no time for you. I don't have a desire to be around you. I don't want to catch that disease. I'm FOMophobic. I'm afraid of people who have FOMO. I'm just being real. Like, I look at it as a disease. If you suffer from FOMO, stay away. I'm gonna hit you with one of these. Like, don't touch me.
Yeah.
That's just what I'm gonna do.
It's real. And here's the thing that people also don't get with everything you're saying about the word decision too, is that if you are not making a decision, you are making a decision. You're making a decision to not make a decision. And all of a sudden, these marbles that you have, even if you have them, these decisions are going to build and build and build and build. And all of a sudden, you have all these decisions to make because you couldn't just make a decision. Make the decision and let's accept the consequence, like you said, right? To cut out and all this, right? Let's accept the consequence, not the right decision. Let's make a decision and make it right. Accept the consequence of what it's going to be. Consequence can be a good thing. Doesn't have to be a negative thing. The consequence of me putting in the work could be a result of me making more money. That's the consequence, right? So let's be accepting of the consequence and make a decision. Let's be decisive.
Steven, I love it. Couldn't have said it better myself. And so let's move into the C of focus, which is the C in focus. You guys are going to like this because y'all are married. The C stands for commit.
Hey.
Okay, so when we talk about commit, I literally, this is one we're going to breeze through. I need you to marry your goal. Now, I've never been married, but I've gone to a few weddings, and I watch some movies every now and then. I watch some rom-coms, and I've seen
you go to marriage retreats.
And a marriage retreat.
I go to marriage retreats. I do go to, that's so crazy. And so I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, in the vows, there's a line that you guys give that's along it goes something like through sickness and through health. And effectively what you're saying is, I am here with you through the highs and the lows. That I'm not going to abandon you when things are bad. And I'm also not going to run off when I'm not going to lose myself in the excitement of the next season or the next chapter. When things start coming in, I'm not going to jump ship onto something else because I'm all excited and hyped up on good feelings. And your goal requires the same level of commitment. It requires you to marry it. It requires you to lock in. And again, this didn't start happening in my own business until I decided to pick one thing. In the beginning, see, I mentioned it took me 8 months to get my first deal. What I didn't mention was during those 8 months, I was trying everything. I'm out writing handwritten letters. I'm door knocking. I'm driving for dollars. I'm cold calling. I'm going to the county clerk. Every possible strategy you could imagine. Anytime something new would pop up, let me do a little bit of that. Let me do a little bit of this. And I was never committed to any one of them. And all the things I were doing, they all had the ability to work. Every one of those strategies could have made me hundreds of thousands of dollars if I had just concentrated and committed to one of them and put all of my marbles there. And luckily, around 6 months in, I got that wake-up call. And someone said, just concentrate all of your attention on this one strategy. And I did. And deals started flowing from that one strategy, from that one marketplace, from those one zip codes. And this is why I preach this message so freaking much. And so when you commit, there's a word I want you to associate with the C of commit. And that word is this. Until. Because you're going to ask me, how long do I need to commit for? The answer is until. Until what? Until you get a result. Until you have more money in your bank account. Until you start making deals happen. Until it is undeniable that you are where you want to be. You commit until. And I always think back to, there's a name that y'all are probably familiar with. J.K. Rowling.
Ooh.
She's the author of Harry Potter. If you're familiar with the Harry Potter series. So J.K. Rowling is the author of Harry Potter. And they all know her books. And the Harry Potter series is $1 billion industry. It's $1 billion brand. And what people might not know is that she was rejected by 12 different publishers while trying to get the series off the ground. And during that time of facing rejection, she was a single mother on welfare. If anybody had a justification in giving up and packing in and letting go of their goal, I would say it would be a mother who has children to feed. Like if she's like, look, I had to stop writing the books because my kids were hungry and I had to go get a job and go do something else. But that woman stayed committed. She said, I'm going to keep pushing these books until, and there are hundreds of stories like this. When you look at the greatest founders throughout American history, throughout world history, you find individuals who understood what true commitment looked like. They didn't understand it theoretically. They understood it through their action.
Yep.
I want in 2025, the listeners of this podcast to be until people that lock in until. And so let's bring it over to the you. We got 2 letters left.
Can I build on that real quickly right before we jump into the you with the word commit, because I love this kind of stuff so much. The other side to this is you might be committing to the wrong decision, and that is okay. The whole idea here, what did we talk about in the very beginning of the podcast where Marlon said he made a commitment essentially to himself that he was going to accomplish all these things. And at the end of the day, he looked around and he goes, I'm living at home. All my friends did the things that I wanted to do because he didn't commit to a certain decision, right? So it's okay if you commit to the wrong decision, because at the end of the day, if you committed to it, you got the results and you realize that's not the direction you wanted to go. All of a sudden now, whoa, we just built confidence because we did the thing. We set our mind to it. We accomplished it. Now we just know that we have to pivot to a different direction. But now we've built the confidence to say, when I pivot to this new direction, I know I can go accomplish that as well.
Well, Steven, there's a good war story that I like to share with people. So this war story goes something like this. And you guys may have heard a slightly different variation of this. So the exact specific details aren't all that important as long as you get the gist. That there was a conflict happening out in the Middle East, and you had these 2 neighboring countries that had been at war with each other for decades. And so this new general gets brought into the front lines, and the general is in charge of now figuring out what's going to happen. And so a young cadet brings to the general all the files on what's happening to get him caught up to speed. And this is 200 pages worth of documentation on battle briefs, on history, and all of these things. And the general takes the file, looks at it, places it down, and begins to speak to the troops and gives his orders. And he locks in the orders and says, this is what we're going to do. You're all dismissed. And now the cadet is baffled. There is no way you read through the files I just gave you. I literally just handed it to you. It's fresh off the print, and that's 200 pages. It would take you a week to get through everything I just handed you. And so the cadet goes to the general and says, permission to speak freely. Permission granted. General, how could you have made such a call? We've been at conflict with these people for decades. No one's been able to make a decision. No one knows what the right decision is. And I just gave you all the information. There's no possible way for you to have gone through all of that before you got here, because some of that stuff is new. So how could you have possibly have made the right call? And he said, nobody's made a call. Therefore, the call I made is the right call. To Steven's point, no one made a decision in years. And that indecision is causing this to progress longer. So I made a decision, and here's what's going to happen. We're going to follow that decision. We're going to commit to that decision, and we're going to find out one of 2 things. We're going to find out I either made the right decision, in which case we would have saved time, or we're going to find out I made the wrong decision, and from there we will course correct, and therefore I still saved time.
Yes.
Stop worrying about trying to make the perfect decision. Make the decision and then make it right.
Oof.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's so good.
There's one thing that Kay Vargas brought up, and I want to maybe give some insight, and I think you might be able to too a little bit. But Kay Vargas, my husband and I actually are not in business together at the end of the day. He is our listing agent to our flips, but I actually have my own focus of what I'm working on, because I focus on acquisitions. My skill set is marketing. And so I use my husband. My husband helps my business, but he's not necessarily in my business, if that makes sense. So if he and I catch up every day. We have a little cafecito in the morning. We catch up on what's happening in our lives, but that might be something you might need to make a decision on, especially if you both want to focus on very different things. For example, this year, my husband wants to only focus on listings and building his lending business. That's it. If we get any buyers, unless they're like friends and family and it's just like a very strong relationship, we're not going to focus on buyers. We have other agents we can refer those buyers to, but we're only focused on listings and lending for him. For me, I don't focus on that. I give that to him because it's time wasted. I'm more valuable in looking for deals from an acquisition standpoint. So it's okay that you both have different focuses. You have to get super clear about are you guys playing to your strengths, and are you playing to what drives you, like what motivates you? My husband's like, yeah, I just want to be a lender and be behind my desk. I don't want to have to drive buyers, to 10, 12 different properties and find out that they're just going to rent. That wasn't like, he's too old. I'm too old to like not do what really fires us up. And so after we made that like alignment, I let him do his thing. I'm obviously a marketing aspect for him. So I do thread business to him, but we have our roles, very different roles.
Yeah, it's the same exact thing on my end as well. My wife is the queen of FOMO. She always feels like she's missing out on everything. So it's how do you find this world where you can have both balances? Well, I go, you are the most valuable to our business right now when you crush it at your job. If you kill it at your job and you get the next promotion, you go do this and you put all of your marbles into that job essentially, and you crush it there, that is the most valuable you can absolutely be to our business, because it gives me the opportunity to keep my focus and my commitments and me focus on driving that needle forward. Now, she still wants to be involved in one way or another, so she just looks over her finances. It's something that's easier for her because she's very organized and very disorganized, and that paints a picture and that tells her a story, and it keeps her without feeling that FOMO.
Engaged.
But homegirl hasn't been to a property since probably the third property that we've bought, and we've probably flipped over 70. So she knows nothing about nothing that's going on, and she's totally comfortable with that because she knows if I focus on my job and I give this 110%, then at the end of the day, that's going to allow Steven to give 110% over here.
Yeah.
So that way he can be the best version of himself.
Yeah. So, okay, don't feel pressured that just because you're a couple, you have to do everything together. That's not, in fact, that's not even the point when you have a business partner. You should have complementary skill sets. But that's neither here nor there. I'm talking specifically to marriage. It's okay that you guys both want an end result. Mark and I want to make $500,000 flipping, and we want him to make $100,000 in his new lending business this year. Those are very clear-cut results. And then how you get there has to be aligned with what skill sets do you have, and then how are you going to stay focused on that plan. Every day I'm actually writing in my high performance planner, by the way, Marlon. And one of the things I keep telling myself over and over again, stick to the plan.
Yes.
Every day I've been saying that. Stick to the plan. Today is what, day 15? For 15 days, stick to the plan.
She's been sticking to the plan.
I love that. And you know what? I hope that y'all, if you haven't had her on already, that you can get Anne-Marie Norton on here to talk about that, because the couples retreat that you guys were talking about, like, they weren't joking. I actually did go to a couples retreat, guys. I went as a single dude. And it's because I love relationships. I love learning about human dynamics and what makes great relationships great. And it helps me for the future. It helps my clients right now because I work with married individuals. I work with people, I work with husbands, and I work with wives who want to improve their lives in business and personally at home. And so my job is to go out and gather as much information and resources for them so I can bring them solutions. One of the things that struck me as the most interesting is at that couples retreat, I had never been to one before. I was expecting it to be a lot more about working together and working on the we aspect of the couple in the relationship. And so much, 80 to 90% of that couples retreat was working on the individual aspect of yourself. And by improving yourself, and it's funny because it goes with upgrade, by improving upon yourself and essentially upgrading yourself, you are now creating the environment for a better relationship. If you want your wife to not get FOMO so much, make sure that you yourself are someone who isn't getting FOMO. If you want your husband to not get FOMO as much, make sure you yourself are showcasing them, being an example of what life can look like absent of this thing that you want them to get rid of. But don't ask them to do something that you yourself are not willing to do. And the only way for you to show your willingness is to prove it. Proof is major in 2025. The more proof you can get, the better you're going to be. So I'm going to throw down on upgrade for a second, because this is right up the line with what we just said. You're going to have to level yourself up. And when I say level yourself up, because everyone knows this, here's what I want you to think in terms of. By identifying what your one objective is, I want you to ask yourself, not what do I want to learn? And I get it. Like, everyone wants to do what they want to do. And same here. I love doing what I love doing. But I also need to find out what's required of me. This is why I take the time to study founders throughout history, why I take the time to study multimillionaires and billionaires and business tycoons. Because when I learn from them, I start to see there's certain characteristics, there are certain things that are a reoccurring theme over and over and over. And I start to realize that's inescapable. It is a prerequisite to get to that level. And so that's required. And when you start to establish what is required, what's the skill that's required, then you can start to work on that. And you might say, but Marlon, me getting good at business requires me to get good at sales, and I hate sales. No, you suck at sales. You don't hate sales. You suck at it. There's a difference. See, what I found is when I suck at something, I don't want to play the game. I don't like playing games where I lose. But when I get better at those things, I suck less, I win more, I start to enjoy it. Like pickleball, I love pickleball now because I'm finally getting good at it. In the beginning, I was like, man, this is a stupid sport. This is for old people. I was just saying that because I kept losing to people. I didn't like it. Now that I'm starting to win, I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I was like talking to my brother at Christmas, and I was like, I play pickleball. He was like, that lame sport. I'm like, you just say, oh, now I know you suck at this. Let's go play.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I won and I still don't think, but whatever. Yes.
Well, figuring out what's required as a skill and go and level that particular skill set up. And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. That's a part of the process. So stop waiting for time to be perfect and get right into it. And the final thing I'm going to say on this is the S. This is simplify. And hopefully I spelled that one right.
You did.
Simplify.
Good job. Proud of you.
Beautiful. So with simplification, there's actually a mathematical formula to making this happen. And this mathematical formula will make you probably 10 to 15 times more money this year. And it's a complicated mathematical formula. It was discovered by these 15th century Italian mathematicians. And I have been fortunate enough to be able to memorize it, and I can recite it for you guys right now. So get your pen and paper out because you're going to want to write this down. You will not be able to remember this off the top.
Wait, Marlon.
Down very carefully.
I don't want you to share it unless you all can tell me that you've gone out and you're now following Marlon Johnson as Mindset Marlon on Instagram or following him on his YouTube. If I get at least one or two people on the comments saying that they're following Marlon, I will ask him to reveal this math that's going to give you 10 times the result.
Stipulations, you guys.
Don't you think, Marlon? I mean, we can't just be giving out all this cash. What's up? So if you guys are out there, tell me whether or not you're following Marlon, and then I will allow him to move forward. What's up?
I like it.
What's up? Keep it simple, stupid, K. Vargas said. All right, guys. All right. Got it. Collie Jean. Yes. Collie Jean is following you. All right.
We got him.
All right, Marlon. You may move forward.
Okay. This mathematical formula, pay attention. Pay close attention. I'm only going to be able to go through it once.
Chino.
There it
How'd
is.
you memorize that?
This one took years. Less equals more. I want to really stress this point home for y'all. Less equals more. I told you at the beginning of this, focus is the active removal, not the passive removal. Not I hope things just fall away if I stop paying attention to them. It is the active removal of all things that are distractions. in 2025, if you want to accomplish more, you actually need to do less. And the best way I know how to share this lesson is I want you all to think about this. And you guys go ahead and take the whiteboard off the screen for a moment. There's a baseball player by the name of Alex Rodriguez of the Yankees. A lot of people don't know A-Rod is actually a pretty savvy real estate investor and entrepreneur. He invests in multiple business. I believe, and somebody go and Google this for me, I believe he's sitting at around 40,000 units now between all his multifamily holdings and the things that he's a part of with syndications. And he's not just a passive investor. He goes out and he acquires properties on his own. He negotiates deals on his own. Many people didn't know this about him. And so I was at a conference where Alex Rodriguez was speaking, and he shares a story about how he had a one-on-one audience with Warren Buffett. Now, to get a one-on-one with Warren Buffett is very difficult. Every year, Warren Buffett does a lunch that people are able to bid to have his time for an hour. Those lunches on average bid for anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. I believe one year, the most expensive it went up to was about $1.2 million for an hour of Warren Buffett's time. And so Alex Rodriguez had this lunch, and it was requested by Warren Buffett. So Warren Buffett asked him to come. And now Alex, knowing who Warren Buffett is, starts preparing. He starts getting all of his financials together. He starts understanding the current state of his business holdings. And he comes with this just presentation ready for Warren. And at this lunch, he starts telling Warren everything. Okay, so this is where I'm at. This is what I'm working on. These are the business opportunities I've invested in. This is the ROIs we made. This is the money I have access to. This is boom, 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 boom. And Warren Buffett just kind of sits there like happy grandpa. Just lets him talk. And when Alex is finally done, he says, and so what do you think I should do? And Warren Buffett says, oh, you want me to tell you what you should do? Okay, well, let me ask you a question first. Why are you here with me? And Alex is a little confused, but he says, well, I'm here to hopefully get some wisdom and some advice from you. You're the greatest investor of our time. Like, I would love to know what you think I should do. And Warren says, I think you misunderstand the question. I want to know, why are you in this room with me right now? Did you ever ask yourself, why did I invite you to come sit down? I'm a humble guy, but I'm also aware how difficult it is to get my audience. I'm aware how much people pay to spend time with me, and yet I requested your audience. Why is that? And Alex says, actually, I hadn't really thought of that. He says, well, let me tell you. You want to know what I think you should do? You're in this room because you're Alex Rodriguez of the Yankees, the greatest baseball player alive. What I think you should do is continue to be Alex Rodriguez of the Yankees, the greatest baseball player alive, playing for the greatest baseball team. Because you being the number one player, you being the best at what you do, you being world class, got you this opportunity. And all of those other businesses you've bought and that real estate portfolio you have and the private money lenders and opportunities that come knocking on your door every day come as a result of you being Alex Rodriguez of the Yankees. Continue to be that. Continue to focus on that one thing, and all the other opportunities will take care of themselves. If that's not a reminder for all of us to lock into one thing, then I don't know what else is. So, Steven, Ingrid, I appreciate y'all allowing me to come here and share this framework on focus. And if even one person takes the lesson and applies it in 2025, my job here was worth it. My time here was worth it. And I want that person, come find me at the end of the year and tell me and share with me what experience you had as a result of staying locked in for the entire year.
Fantastic.
Gosh, that was beautiful.
Yeah, I love this. I love this so much. I love that it's in January. Marlon, thank you so much for being our guest. You're one of my favorite people, and I just love that, we were able to ask you to do us this favor. I know that this could be so good for our audience if they just listen and incorporate your advice.
Yes, absolutely. Sure. And I'd love for you to be able to stop by our office at some point too, Marlon, and even talk some of this greatness into our team as well, and run one of our team meetings. I think that's just everything you talk about. It's incredible. And you know exactly what to talk about, when the time is right. Speaking of which, how can people find you? How can people sign up for your coaching? How can people be a part of Mindset Marlon?
Yeah, great question. So, and I would love to come down to you guys' office. Absolutely love you too. And the best way to get a hold of me, everybody, is to find me on Instagram at Mindset Marlon. That's the number one place to find me. And then this year, I'm going to be focusing a lot of time inside of my community. I have the Millionaire Mindset community. I'm working with entrepreneurs who are looking to stay in that focus. They want to stay in that energy. They need lessons on constant reminder. They need lessons on leadership. They need to learn how to reprogram their self-image. Those are the people I'm working with. I'm sharing everything that I've learned from the last decade of studying personal development, from spending over $150,000 in mentorship, courses, gurus, workshops, masterminds. I'm just giving it all away for free inside of the community. So people could find the link to that community inside of my Instagram. It's inside my school. Yep.
Okay. Sorry.
Yep.
I want to make
so
sure
if people go to school.com,
Mm-hmm.
if they go to school.com, skool.com/MMC-free, it's a free community and they're able to jump right in. We actually just hired a new community rep to really keep up with all the messages in the DM. So I'm excited about that.
That's awesome. So you can keep your focus. Yeah. And that,
So I can keep my
because that
focus.
can be a distraction for sure. Honestly, the biggest move I've made this year, and it's still getting incorporated, is I got myself an executive assistant. So it's going to take a while to onboard her. I actually didn't, for the record, I totally understand the whole focus stuff. I didn't realize how much stuff I was doing that had nothing to do with, build like money making activities, but things that have to get done. So things that have to get done, but they're not making me more money, you know? And so, Steven gifted me a book called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And I've heard this before, but I think after reading that book, I was like, it's time.
Yeah.
It's time to get an assistant. I'm still cautious about virtual assistants when they have all of my personal info. So it's my sister. She's awesome. So I'm excited. And I'm actually sharing a lot of stuff that she wants to learn too about real estate. So it's been a really great win-win.
It's a great mutually beneficial relationship in that sense, where she can learn about the stuff as your stuff is getting handled.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So many hours of non-money making activities that I was focused on just to run your assets. So it's wild. Yeah. Marlon, are you going to have another mastermind? Are we going to see Marlon, helping people go up a Camelback Mountain, or what's up?
Yeah, it's actually gonna be even bigger than Camelback. So the answer is yes. The date is to be decided. If people are interested in coming out to that, we're going to be putting out a wait list here in the next week or so. So yeah, that's going to be a fun thing. We got a wait list coming and a newsletter if people want to stay tuned to what we're working on this year.
Fantastic.
Incredible.
Go follow Marlon on Instagram, and he'll keep you updated on all these awesome opportunities. And honestly, if you guys have ever hung out with Marlon, he's just got amazing, contagious, beautiful energy.
Truly.
And it's worth being around Marlon. So yeah.
Such a treat to have you on, brother. Thank you so much.
All right,
Appreciate
guys.
Thank you
so
for having me.
Yeah. And we're here every Wednesday from 1 to 2 p.m. Arizona time. We're excited.
Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell icon so you can be notified when our next podcasts are coming up. We're always bringing on awesome guests, and we'd love for you to join and ask any questions so we can explain it.
Right on. See you guys next Wednesday.